Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Karim Ali from Framework. Karim, how are you? How you doing?
Not too bad, Toby. How are you?
Very good, very good. Good to see you back in the office in normal surroundings. I've been in garages, I've been in front rooms, I've been in bedrooms, and now I'm in an office again. It feels pretty good. How you doing back in HQ?
This is my third or fourth week back. We're doing 1 day a week typically. Myself and Alan, who's the CEO, he comes in on a Monday. I typically come in on a Tuesday. We've tried to increase the number of on-site presence from the various professional services and development teams. And we're slowly kind of getting back to normal. We're limited to 5 people in the office at any one time because of the social distancing rules. So far, I think we've had a maximum of 5 last week, but today it's just myself, Alan, and 2 others, so 4 today.
Yeah, I had two in there yesterday. 2 in a 60-man space is a interesting office, isn't it? But listen, let's start with you. Interesting times, as we say. You've just arrived only a matter of months ago over at Framework. Okay. But before we get into that story, tell us a little bit about Framework and what you guys are doing.
So Framework initially, in its first guise, was established in 2000 by, I think, 4 accountants who knew the private equity and real estate space fairly well. And as I said, they formed in 2000 and onboarded some nice clients and big names and did quite well. But they were ultimately acquired in 2007 by 3i Infotech, Indian-based company, just before the global financial crisis. So having started a business myself back in 2006 and going through that crisis, obviously plans go awry and you have to kind of recalibrate, rebaseline yourself. And they kind of mumbled along for a number of years and onboarded some clients, but then decided at the group level it wasn't really the strategic initiative that they initially anticipated. And so the firm kind of ambled along for a number of years before it was acquired by our chairperson and group director, Bertil, whom many people will probably know from multi-funds. He grew that from the outset and obviously had a big acquisition a few years ago. So he, along with another couple of companies in Switzerland and in Luxembourg, Crossing Tech and Nardi Solutions, formed together this complementary suite of companies, really. So we're on the private equity and real estate side, Nardi on the financial reporting, and Crossing Tech more on the real estate side of things. So there are synergies. There's a word from the recent business past between the 3 companies, and part of the objective and the strategic business rationale really is to try and bring those 3 companies together. So we already share resources. We have a common business goal in mind, and we're working more and more closely with one another, really.
Fantastic. And as we say, look, you're relatively fresh to it. You joined the company, and a matter of days and weeks later, you're faced with a pandemic. How's that been?
So I'd like to correct you right there, Toby. It wasn't a matter of days or weeks. There's no plural. It was my first day. It was the Monday, the 16th of March. I'd kind of done 1 or 2 days here and there in the run-up to joining full-time, which was, as I said, the Monday, 16th of March. And literally my first real act as COO was to co-sign off the working from home order with Alan, our boss, CEO. So it was bizarre to say the least. So I've grown to learn about the people that work for us, work with us, largely through Zoom, through the Microsoft Teams medium. But bizarrely, considering the job that I had been brought in to do, which is to kind of give it a new impetus around product and corporate and professional impetus, it's been perversely a good time for me to join because I've been able to kind of concentrate on the actual remit of reorganizing the team, introducing a new methodology in Agile, which was kind of percolating away in the background for us as a firm. So it's actually been, as much as it's not nice to say, it's been easier for me to do meet my initial set of objectives, which is to grow the team. Our architecture team's grown by 50%. We kind of met one of the new recruits only for the first time physically last week. Up until then, it's been Zoom interviews and remote tests, and you kind of have a hunch of people as you get older and as you go through the recruitment process. And so far, so good. The guys have come in, done a really good job so far, and seem really enthusiastic about what we're doing.
So on that, I mean, look, I've worked with you now for probably in excess of 15 years. I'd probably say, and it's
Yeah.
and over that sort of time, it was when we go right back to the very, I know there was a sort of pretty intense interview process that you used to run back in the old days. Tell us about now and this this sort of new normal of Zoom interviewing and such like. How's that work for you guys?
I think, like with anything in life, if you embrace the circumstances in which you are currently operating within and have an open mind, you can make anything work, really. So if you had said to us 5 years ago, you're going to hire 2 senior software engineers or architects into a team that's delivering a strategic rewrite and architecture project over the next 12 months, without actually physically meeting them, having a beer, having a coffee, people would have laughed at you. But this is the new norm. You know, we have an opportunity to grow our team at the right time, and we need to take that opportunity. So it's working with the right recruitment firms, them understanding what our requirements are. And as I said, based upon my experience of hiring and forming out teams, you know what you're looking for. Aptitude and ability is definitely a big component of what you want. But ultimately, I think the people gelling component really is something that's more important these days. And I think whether you meet someone physically or if you see them in Zoom and you kind of interact with them, your gut kind of tells you whether this person's going to be the right fit for you and your team and your organization moving forward. And touch wood, so far, so good. With regards to that gelling and trying to get those dynamics, as someone who, as you said, sort of has been forming relationships over a few months over Zoom and such like, and now starting to slowly get people together. How's that work for you? How's it working for you to, what learns have you had from sort of not meeting your team to working out who's going to be right and how people are going to interplay together as well? So as I said, I think a lot of the personality traits, if you like, are largely driven by the gut. You know, when you meet someone for the first time, you kind of have an inkling as to whether that person's going to fit well with the team or not. And I don't think that really fundamentally changes. And on a Zoom call, really, a lot of the interviews that I initially carried out for the 2 or 3 engineers that we've hired in the last 2 or 3 months, when they realised that I had just joined, they asked me what kind of compelled you to join, and I had to distill it down to one word, which was opportunity. Because as you know, my background. After FactSet acquired the original business that we formed back in 2006, I left FactSet, I think, December 2017, and have been kind of part-time consulting for various firms since then. So for me, the opportunity at Framework was just too great to turn down as a permanent opportunity. So I was kind of umming and ahhing for a number of months and years about whether I wanted to kind of go back in full-time with something. And when this opportunity came along, I could see the opportunity that it is, which is, it's like a startup, because we're on the journey of new methodology, hiring people, product roadmaps, commercializing the business a bit more, launching new products, so on and so forth. But we've got 15 plus clients around the globe, some of the biggest hedge funds and real estate and private equity players out there. And we've got an established product, and we've been around for a long time. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer, the opportunity, and that's the word I kept using with Chris and Ben and Vincent, etc., that the opportunity was just too huge to turn down, really. So I think I kind of went into sales mode, even though I'd only been in the office for 1 day, based upon the conversations that I had with Bertil and Alan before Christmas, i.e. end of 2019, really. Yeah. And look, this whole series has been sort of characterized by me speaking to people who are turning the issues and the problems we're all facing into opportunities. Tell us how that looks for you guys, because it's been, I think it's another example of a company who's dealt with this incredibly well. Give us a little bit about how you guys have turned the negative into a positive. So I think, as I said, look, purely from a selfish point of view, I was hired to kind of revamp the focus on our product, on our methodology, hiring out into the professional services and the architecture teams, and bringing a new level of discipline, really, as someone who had started a company in the fintech space a few years back and successfully have it acquired a number of years later. So I think for me, I could see there were many, many good things happening at Framework. Some of the development items that were kind of being discussed as to whether we needed to have them as a priority or not. Some of my experience of the marketplace suggested that we should focus on X, Y, and Z. So we had this kind of hallelujah session, if you like, a period of introspection where we said, look, we're taking a step back. And whilst it's very important, Alan calls it the water cooler moment when you're in the office and you're meeting people and you're speaking to people, that's very important. But because we've kind of been stuck in our own homes or thereabouts, we had the opportunity to really reflect on what it is we're trying to do and in the time frame in which we're doing it. And people are generally more relaxed after the the hype of being locked down and the fear of catching said COVID-19. I think people got into that new norm where now the challenge is, we joked about it in terms of getting people back into the office, because people are now really comfortable working from home, have proven to be effective. And so they're kind of saying, well, do I really need to go in 4 or 5 times a week anymore? So they're trying to find that balance themselves. And, whilst we're under the guidelines of the government and the restrictions around transport, we've made it quite clear to our workforce, look, your health and your safety and your family's well-being is our number one priority. And unless you can drive to work, which is what I do, or cycle or walk, avoid public transport for now. So I think this working from home flexibility will continue for a while, and it's allowed people, to answer your original question, the ability to be a bit more open about their ideas, a bit more forthcoming with what it is we should do as a firm, really. New methodologies. We're doing a lot of client introspections, because one of the things, obviously, as you know, to understand your marketplace, you need to understand your client base really as well. So we've had this period of reflection where we're going through each account, trying to understand why did they select Framework, what it is they use us for, how can we give them a better service, what do we need to do in terms of the regulatory landscape as well. So we've got our thinking hats on really, and I have to say I'm quite pleased with what's happened in the first 3 months from a personal and from a corporate perspective.
Yeah, introspection is a really interesting part, isn't it? Because either you get sort of very weighed down in the sort of BAU of everything, and just sort of scramble to keep your head above the water, or you can utilize it to be better. And my view is this is no better a time than to reset and really examine every aspect of your business and work out how it can improve. And I think that's something there which clearly you guys are doing and looking at. When you look at your client base and you look at the sort of needs of your customers, what are the sort of things that you're seeing out there at the moment that's important to your client base?
So private equity and real estate, which is the market that we operate within, is undergoing a number of regulatory changes. IFRS 9 is the hot topic around the accounting and accrual of cash, so on and so forth. And we've been working largely on satisfying those regulatory requirements. But at the same time, one thing that I've done recently is institute a customer advisory board, which is just a fancy term of more client engagement, really. But it's a new term that people in our industry are using. And it's important that we kind of get continuous customer validation about what we're building. So yes, client A might give you a whole list of requirements. Your own in-house subject matter experts might give you a whole bunch of other requirements because they're reading the press and they're understanding the regulations. But I think if you can then cherry pick 3 or 4 other clients giving you additional input, it kind of helps you reprioritize. And with the whole agile methodology that we're currently implementing, we're on our 4th or 5th sprint now, I think, since I joined. It's really important for us to kind of have a product that we can showcase on a monthly basis to the participants of our customer advisory board, so that the likes of client A and client B say, yeah, you're on the right track. Actually, we're not quite sure about how you're doing this as well. So yeah, it's been quite interesting in ensuring that we not only implement a new development methodology in Agile and our nuances around it, but also staying on top of the regulations as well, because if we don't, then obviously we're kind of not doing what our customers expect us to do moving forward.
And Agile is something that you brought in over this sort of period, right?
Yeah, I mean, I want to take full credit for it, but they were talking about it, at the back end of last year, and a proof of concept was kind of always put in place for Q1, Q2 this year, which we're currently undertaking and embarking upon. But because I've been executing or managing Agile projects for the last 2 to 4 years, really, especially the last 2 years, I was able to bring some of my recent experience to the table, and it's been good because there's a lot of trepidation. If you've been, used to the waterfall module, you're kind of without wishing to get too technical, loads of business requirement documents, and you do this and then you do that, and it's a mind shift change really more than anything else. And anyone who's worked with offshore teams will know that they're slightly more subservient than they should be. They're not as forthcoming with opinions as well. So it's about taking them on the journey as well, because as I said, our development and QC team are in Bangalore as well. So it's about, I was going to say emancipate, but empowering probably is probably the right word to say, look, there is no right or wrong way of doing this. We need to find out what agile actually means for framework and vice versa.
Yeah. So the change machine rolls through there. Part of that is obviously, as we say, the challenges of bringing people in and putting this team together who are sort of connecting remotely. Agile's definitely going to help that. What else would you say are some of the big lessons that you can take away and share with the viewers on putting together a new team and such a sort of, including yourself in that circumstance? It's such a big challenge, and I think you're dealing with it incredibly well. But tell us about some of those challenges and some of the learns that you've got from this.
I mean, obviously, the week that I joined, I think the week after was supposed to be my planned, company night out. So that's still to do. Jan, who's our PA and office manager here. So since then, Ben's joined, Chris has joined, Vincent's joined. So instead of having one newcomer get together, we're going to have 4 when the time's right. And it's just about talking to the new members of the team, just making sure that they understand that although these are extraordinary times, we're committed to the business, we're committed to the investments that we're making, and you guys are integral to what we're trying to achieve. And then you have your usual, virtual pub sessions on a Friday afternoon, which I try to institute with some of the teams. Not much uptake. I don't know if that's because they're teetotal or they're too nervous about bringing a bottle of Bud in front of the Zoom call. But just people have been sharing recipes, playing online games, so on and so forth. So trying to build some camaraderie around that. But ultimately, everyone's here to do a job, and I think a lot of the new joiners, especially, have appreciated being part of something greenfield, but at the same time having the luxury of delivering said project from their living rooms or studies or garages. So I think there's been a lot of contentment really, despite the tough times that we're currently living within.
Yeah, and I think that sort of has an interesting effect on things moving further forward. I mean, we were speaking about this before, that the sort of 4 to 5 days in the office is potentially a thing of the past. What does this sort of phase change for you in 2 weeks, in a month's time, or 2 months' time, or do you see this being, or do you see a return to everyone in the office as being something that happens again in the future?
I think, Framework had a fairly flexible working policy anyway, quite sensitive to the needs of our people, which I think is really progressive. I think moving forward, there's definitely a need to have some time in the office. You read some mad stuff, especially coming out the US, where some of the big major fintech or tech companies are saying we'll never come into the office ever again. I think a firm like ours couldn't make such a statement, because I think the face-to-face interaction, especially in a client-facing role, will be required in the future. But I do think the new norm will be kind of like a diarized number of days per person per month working from home, and employers and firms trusting their people to deliver. I think a lot of the paranoia that senior managers had, and I was exposed to 1 or 2 of those over the last few years, despite their intelligence and power and prestige and position, they just sometimes weren't convinced that people who were working from home were actually working from home, and you'd get flippant statements like shirking from home and all things like that. But I think what this is, because we've been put into a corner, and people know that, we're lucky, we're in finance, we're in technology, we're in fintech, so on and so forth, and we've been fairly well protected, but the common man in the streets lost his job. People have been furloughed as well. So I think a lot of people around the city have been quite grateful that they still have a job, and are taking that seriously as well. So they haven't kind of treated it as one big holiday. Yes, I my personal self have had 1 or 2 impromptu barbecues during the week, but not at the expense of what it is we're trying to deliver as well. And I know many working mothers, for example, have been, I was going to say burdened, but that's the wrong word. The constraints of looking after children, fathers as well. Yeah, it's tough. And some lawyer friends kind of like do the kids stuff during the day, and then from 11 at night until 4 in the morning, they're kind of working away as well. So people have adapted to the situation they're in and coming up with solutions and still ultimately delivering to their companies and for themselves, really.
I think that's the key part there, isn't it? Delivering and productivity. And I think this is if you look at the sort of big fans of versatile work and flexible working and such, like, it's trust is a big part of it, but trust measured, that's measured and trust but verify. I think it was the Cold War phrase, wasn't it, that was used by Reagan, and I always think of that in those sort of circumstances. Productivity being really key. How are you measuring that sort of stuff, particularly in a sort of non-sales organization in certain parts of it? How does that productivity get measured?
So, I mean, in terms of, the agile methodology, one thing it's really good for is obviously tracking in small chunks what it is you're trying to achieve. And so we had the two-pronged attack of obviously deploying a new methodology and then doing it with lockdown in mind. Oh, and by the way, we're geographically, separated as well. So it was actually a triple challenge. And the only thing I can talk about is how the velocity of our sprints have improved over the last 6 to 8 weeks, really. So that tells me that people are understanding the methodology. We're delivering more than we were doing, say, 4 weeks ago as a measurable metric. But if you take development, you see it's a fairly black and white situation. You have a number of tasks that you need to complete. You need a number of scripts that you need to execute. So those items are quite measurable, really. And we haven't put any extra strain on our team in terms of having to overproduce during this time. We're kind of looking at our previous metrics, and without putting any additional pressure, we've actually seen that there's been a 10 to 15% improvement in output when it comes to items being completed more quickly, the coverage of our test scripts, the automation, so on and so forth. So there's been a general natural kind of almost via osmosis improvement in productivity. And I think that's largely down to people feeling a bit more relaxed when they're working at home, number one. And number two, don't forget travel. Travel does take a lot out of people. I've been driving in, and initially it was taking me less than an hour door to door. This morning it took me an hour and 20 minutes because the number of cars on the road and the traffic as we get back to normal.
I did it yesterday. It's certainly it's definitely a longer drive up, isn't it?
Exactly. And then if you factor in Bangalore with all of their transport and logistical issues as well. So we've seen a really good improvement in the productivity of the team out in Bangalore, because I think the traveling time there has been a bit more intense than it has been for us here in the UK and in Luxembourg.
You mentioned something very interesting there, where I think you've probably hit the nail on the head with regards to productivity. Look, there's a natural piece there where people do feel more pressure, and one of the key things from working from home is that people sort of feel like they're being watched more, and it end up trying to sort of burn the candle a little bit more and do more. You're obviously being pretty relaxed about that and trying to create that sort of trust and environment of support around that and all that sort of thing. What are some of the takeaways that you've taken from that?
Well, I think, you've hit the nail on the head, and I've touched upon it as well. It really is. It's all about trust. Because if you've hired people to come in and do a job for you, you kind of trust that they can. And then obviously the physical location of said member of staff shouldn't really have a material impact unless you're putting a developer in a rainy shed somewhere outside. He or she shouldn't have a detrimental impact on what they're developing. I think it's important to balance that level of freedom and trust with having regular checkpoints. Don't get me wrong, we're not running a circus here where people are just not abiding to meetings. We have that as well. We have start of week catch-ups with development teams, with QC teams, so on and so forth. Obviously with Agile, as you know, we have daily stand-ups where there's discipline around the 15-minute catch-up where everyone's giving a quick update. So yes, the number of Zoom meetings have increased, but I think they're more short, sharp and precise as well, because people just want to get their heads down and get on with their work and deliver what they need to deliver, really.
Let's finish on a piece here that you touched on a little bit earlier on. You joined the business because you could see the opportunity. Tell us about that opportunity. What's Framework so exciting at the moment?
So if we go back to what I said earlier, I think so. Bertil bought Framework back in 2016, I think, late 2016, and 17 and 18 were all about recalibrating the business, just bringing it back onto an equal footing. And 2019 was all about, okay, look, I've invested in this business. The product's very good. It needs some work. We need some new marketing and PR and a sales push. And so 2019 was all about making sure that we had all of the foundations and building blocks in place. And initially that was Alan, our CEO, joining. So he kind of steadied the ship even further, professionalized the firm a bit more. Then we talked about, well, I say we, they talked about how do we take it to the next level. And I think they agreed at the back end of last year that they needed a COO. So they went looking for one and they found me. They seem fairly happy so far. And as I said, when I met Bertil and Alan over a lunch and a few drinks, and we kind of socialized what it is they wanted to do. Yeah, the opportunity. Look, as I said, the client base is there. The product's mature and established. Yes, it needs a bit of a revamp, but every product does. You know, even if the best looking products right now will have a period of reflection and improvement planned for the next year or two, so on and so forth. So yeah, I just thought it was an opportunity where I could come in and stamp my mark, hire the people that we've hired, introduce new concepts, baseline the product, round it up a bit more, work on this re-architecture project. I think that's appealed to a lot of our architects who have joined the team, because it's not just maintaining old code. It's actually, as a developer, there's nothing more exciting than working on a greenfield, and the re-architecture project that we're undertaking right now is you know, it's perfect for these guys who are buoyed by the challenge. And so it was easy for me, once I knew what the opportunity was, to sell it to them, and I'm happy to say they kind of joined as well. So yeah, the rest of 2020 is about bottoming out our roadmap. We've talked about agile, we've talked about the recruitment, we've talked about the client introspection sessions that we're having. And we've got a go-to-market strategy now penciled in for Q3 this year, where we will re-engage with all of our clients and take them through what our plans are. So alongside the Framework core platform, which is the main application or desktop, which provides the real estate and the private equity functionality, we're also introducing two new products, one called the Investor Portal, which kind of gives a nice front-end veneer to the underlying engine and gives our clients the ability to forward sell that onto their own clients, so window into the Framework product from an external client of theirs. And something that we're quite excited about called Data Hub, and specifically the look-through requirements are quite important for our clients and future clients, which gives you full transparency around your end levels of investments and investment structures and exposures, if you like. So we're working on some cutting edge stuff. The re-architecture project I've talked about. We're also moving to fully fledged web UI towards the end of the year as well. So that opportunity, in one word, if I could use that one word again, opportunity, was for me just too good to turn around, where you kind of have the ability to be free in a startup, but at the same time with the cushion and the backup of an established firm, established product, established client, and the ability to grow out the business, really.
It's as you know, we've done for a good few years now the sort of analysis of what makes companies and leaders and businesses great in the sector, and look, having a place there, which is we do the Great Place to Work survey every year in fintech, and a load of the stuff you're talking about there about how you're looking after people through this is comes through pretty clearly. If you look at the the most influential list that we do every year, it's characterized by a strong leadership team. I know your track record, Alan's got a pretty stellar track record himself, and Bertil's been there and done that. You're looking at a business that is very, very customer focused, and again, you can see exactly where you're looking at with that, and you've got tech and products that can add real value to genuine needs and pain points in the industry. So I can understand exactly why you're talking about opportunity, and I'm really pleased you're there and doing so well with it. It had such a good start. Karim, look, there's going to be people here who I know are going to be watching this and are very interested to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, my LinkedIn's always up to date. Obviously, you've got my details as well. Always happy to talk. Just to kind of circle off that point, really. We're embarking on some more thought leadership, and I know that's an overused phrase as well, but these are just some of the common ideas that we're trying to bring into Framework 2020 over the next few months. So I think there'll be a lot more thought leadership articles coming from us and our senior management team. You'll hopefully see us at a few more conferences once lockdown is kind of eased, and international travel, and, just even domestic travel, even a conference at the Excel or the O2, I'd give my right arm for right now. Just that would be quite interesting. Yeah, that's where we are.
Brilliant. Well, listen, it's great to hear the story and to understand a little bit more about it. Thanks so much for sharing all the sort of. I think it's so unique for you to come in at that sort of stage and be charged with such a big task during all of this, and the way you're dealing with it, I think is brilliant. So really appreciate you coming on board. Really great to speak to you as always, and thanks for sharing it. And thanks to all of you guys for watching. We'll see you soon. Another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks a lot, Karim. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.